Come on, girl. You can do it. Oh, it's a real Gus moment. Yeah, that's fine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Em, and this is going to be my winter book haul. Let's just dive right on in. If this is your first time catching a book haul video from me, I do these quarterly because that's just what makes sense in my brain. And these are in order from the books in the order that I brought them home. So the first book is actually a book that is on my TBR for March. So hopefully this is not going to remain unread for very much longer. And we have Ardent Violet and the Infinite Eye by Alex White. This is book 2 in the Star Metal Symphony series. Book 1 is August Kitco and the Mechas from Space. And this is a space opera series. I've read another space opera series by Alex White, and it's one of my favorites of all time. And I really enjoyed August Kitco. I'm excited to see where we go in this one, though I remember very little. So I am kind of nervous that like the first third of this book is going to be me going, wait, what? Or who is this? Fingers crossed my memory kicks in faster, but I do not have high hopes for myself. But I'm really excited to read this because I dearly love Alex White as a writer. And then I, of course, had to pick up a copy of my favorite book of 2024 because I read it from the library, which honestly is always my favorite. I love finding a book I love at the library and getting to go and buy a finished copy. I have grand plans of rereading this someday soon so that I can annotate it because I wanted to annotate so bad when I was reading the library copy. And that is Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. This is literary fiction, believe it or not. I can't believe my favorite book of 2024 was a literary fiction because if you've watched my videos, you know that is not my go-to genre. That is actually a genre I very infrequently dip my toes into. But we have an unnamed main character in this one, and it is a love story told in reverse. So we start when the main character and her boyfriend are finishing up their breakup. He is coming to the apartment to get the last of his things to take with him. And we move backwards through their relationship and end the book on the night that they meet. It's very The Last 5 Years, if you're familiar with that musical, but I just absolutely loved the writing. And I should probably read another Hazel Hayes book this year to see if she's going to be on my favorite books list 2 years in a row, but absolutely adored this. And it's so pristine right now, and I can't wait until I read it again so it stops looking like a new book. Actually, the next 3 are also books that I read from the library last year and loved and needed my own copies of. So we have Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the sequel to These Violent Delights, which is a YA historical fantasy duology. This is Romeo and Juliet retelling. I absolutely loved this duology last year. I am normally not a big like Romeo and Juliet retellings type of person, but I loved Chloe Gong's writing. I loved how she wrote Juliet, especially. Like, Juliet was just, her character was so good. And I am a sucker for the dynamic she has between Juliet and Roma in this book. I also really loved the alternate historical Shanghai and how Chloe Gong incorporated real historical events with the magical world that she also created. It was just so good. And then another favorite was The Lies of the Ajongo by Moses Osei Utomi, which I've already reread this year because I needed a book for the Buzzword Reading Challenge. And this is book 1 in the Forever Desert. Book 3 comes out this year. And Tor, if you're watching this, I would love a copy of book 3. But this is a novella series and it's so good. Each book is set in the same world but tackles different things. And I don't want to give away too much because this novella is only like 90 pages and it is the most perfectly paced novella I think I've ever read ever. It's a perfect amount of pages for the story that needed to be told. There's no wasted words. There's nothing that could be thrown away. Every word in here feels necessary and it packs such a punch for only being like 90 pages. I just love it. And then the last one from this little stack is The Liar's Crown by Abigail Owen, which is book 1 in a YA Romantasy series that I just absolutely fell in love with last year. It's so fun. It's my introduction to a shadow daddy, and it was just great. It's got kind of Frozen vibes. We have 2 sisters. One is going to be the queen, and the other one is like her stand-in, like the one to use to protect her, to protect the queen. So like our main character, oh, whose name I've totally forgotten, but it doesn't matter. She goes out and pretends to be her sister if there is a suspicion that the princess, the would-be queen's life is in danger. And so one day our main character is kidnapped by someone who thinks she is the queen. I hope I explained that clearly. But I loved it. It's got a sister dynamic that I really love. I'm a sucker for like that kind of Frozen sister dynamic. And I really like the romance, and I need to read book 3 in this trilogy so I can find out how it ends. But this is book 1, and just I'm excited to reread it someday because I think it's such a fun time. These next 3 books are books that I got for Christmas. We have The Dinosaur Sanctuary, Volume 5. This is a manga series that I am reading that I really love. That is like an alternate our world where dinosaurs never really went extinct and are kept in like these zoos. And in this manga series, we're following a particular dino zoo or dino sanctuary that is going through financial hard times. And you're following the dino keepers as they try to care for the dinosaurs, but as they care for the dinosaurs in the sanctuary, and also try to find ways to bring the public in to make them care about the dinosaurs and to hopefully save the dino zoo from going bankrupt. The next one is The Midwinter Mail Order Bride by Katie Wilde. This is, I think this is fantasy romance. I don't think this is romantasy. I think this is fantasy first, romance later. But there is a theory going around that Katie Wilde used to write as Mila Vane, and Mila Vane wrote a fantasy barbarian romance that is like my favorite romance of all time. And so on the off chance that it is correct, the theory is correct, and this is the same author, I have to read it. I have to read it because I haven't found another book that I love as much as I love this one. But to be fair, I also haven't reread this one because I'm afraid it's not going to live up to the hype in my head. And then the last Christmas present that I got last year is The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Khaw and Richard Kadri. I actually have already read this. I read it last month and I absolutely loved it. This is eldritch monster fantasy horror set in New York City. It is queer and it is gross. There's so much body horror in this, but we're following a woman named Julie who can communicate with creatures from other realms and goes around and battles monsters in New York. But Julie is like a hot mess in every sense of the word. It's just the ultimate chaotic bisexual you can imagine. And this is a really, I feel like, character driven book. It takes a really long time for the plot to get a foothold, but I didn't even care because I was so in on Julie. I was so in on the queer romance. I was here for the vibes. So it was a fantastic book, perfect book for me, but maybe not like a book that I would universally recommend. All right, I guess this next grouping of 3 technically counts as Christmas presents, but I bought it with money that I got for Christmas. So I picked them for myself. But they were basically free because I didn't have to pay any of my own money for them. This one is 100% a cover buy. I know nothing about this book. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know like what the reviews are. I haven't looked them up. I know nothing, but I thought it was the most beautiful book I'd ever seen. And I just needed to own it. And maybe I will read it this year, and maybe I will just look at how pretty it is. But that is Under the Oak Tree, Volume 1 by Suji Kim, and this is fantasy. It's either fantasy with a heavy romance plot or it is actually romantasy. I'm not really sure. I know this was a web novel that has since been translated and obviously like put into book form, and it's chapters 1 through 76 of the original web novel by Suji Kim. So again, I don't know what this one's about, but like, look, Look at how stunning this book is. I just can't with how pretty it is. Hopefully the inside lives up to the outside, but if it doesn't, like, that's okay. It's just so pretty. And then I also got book 3 in that Abigail Owen series. I don't actually know what it's called, but this is The Shadows Rule All. This is book 3 in the Liar's Crown series. Oh no, I don't have book 2 yet. I've read book 2, but I don't own a physical copy yet. But I do have the final book, so I can finally like finish out the trilogy whenever I get around to it. And then on that same shopping trip, I also picked up Heaven's Official Blessing by Tian Guan Sifu. And again, not one I know a whole lot about, except like the corner of Instagram that I lurk on really loves the series. And I think it's romantic. I don't even, yeah. Look, the people I like it. Sometimes that's all I need. My stack is quickly going to lose structural integrity the way I'm just willy-nilly putting books down there. All right, next is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I read this when it came out last summer, but I loved it and picked up a physical copy so my husband would read it, because my husband is not a library user, which I think might be his red flag, is that he doesn't use the library. But yeah, this is a dark retelling of The Goose Girl. I absolutely love The Goose Girl. It was one of my favorite fairy tales growing up. I don't know why, but it just was. And I really liked T. Kingfisher's take on it. I find I like T. Kingfisher's fantasy the most when she either goes super romantic, like Swordheart, or leans into the horror elements. And this one leans into the horror elements in ways that I really like. And then Tor sent me a copy of Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Shauna McGuire. This is the latest installment in the Wayward Children series. And this is about Nadia, who I think is a minor character in some other books, but I didn't remember her from the other ones. And she is an orphan in Russia and is also born without I think it's her left arm, and is adopted by an American couple when she is older, and they immediately start to pressure her into behaving in ways that aren't really true to who she is. They force a prosthetic on her, and they really other her in ways that she was never othered when she was living in the orphanage. She also really loves turtles, and we see her find her door and go through into her world. And I really love the series. It is comforting in a really odd way because they're definitely dark theme-wise. Like, Shauna McGuire does not shy away from the dark and sad things. And then I also got Never a Hero by Vanessa Len. This is book 2 in the Only a Monster trilogy. And I read it already. This is one I read from the library, and I just needed to get a physical copy. This series is about a girl named Joan who finds out that her family are monsters, and there's time travel involved. It's very cool world building. There is a love triangle that maybe isn't a love triangle, but maybe it is a love triangle. I don't know. I am super into it, which is weird because I'm not usually a love triangle person, but the way Vanessa Len writes it, I am all in. I'm so invested. Book 3 comes out later this year, and I am so worried about all the people I love in this world. Okay, we now have a couple of ARCs that I brought home from the bookstore. I am a social media manager for an indie bookstore, and so I get access to ARCs from there as well. And these are 2 Romantasy. We have The Starlight Air by Amelie Howard. This is already out. No, I haven't read it yet. And I don't know what this is about. It's Romantasy. That's really all I needed. I've read Amelie Howard's historical romance before and really liked it, so I'm interested to read Romantasy from her. And then I got Firebird by Juliet Cross, which this one I think is about to come out in April. And I have also read Juliet Cross before. I've read her Wolf Gone Wild, her werewolf book, and I had a really fun time with it, even though I didn't continue on in the series. And actually, Tor just sent me the audiobook for this as well. And so I will probably get to it sooner rather than later now that I have the audiobook. And I just love this cover. I think it's so pretty. I love the art. Who did? I don't know if the ARC puts the cover art information. Oh, I'm sorry. This is being published by Bramble. So Macmillan sent me the audiobook. No, since this is the ARC, it doesn't have the information for who the artist is for the cover. But if I can figure out who it is, I'll put their name somewhere on the screen because I think this is really pretty. All right, and then another book that I read from the library and ended up loving and needing my own copy of was The Seventh Bride by T. Kingfisher. This is one of her older ones, and I picked this up because I needed it for a reading challenge. I needed a book with a clock on the cover, and I hadn't read this one. And this one is one of T. Kingfisher's fantasies that leans into the horror elements, and it's also another one of those that kind of straddles age category because, like, I think technically it's adult, but our main character Rhea is 15, and so like I feel like this could go into YA pretty easily, kind of the way A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking kind of straddles like middle grade and YA. I feel like this straddles YA and adult, but this is about Rhea, who is 15 and is supposed to be betrothed to this really old, gross count who lives near her village, and she's sent to his house under nefarious circumstances, and it has kind of like a 1001 Nights vibe where he keeps assigning her these trials, and every time he's like, but if you don't succeed, I will marry you. And so she really doesn't want to marry him. It was fun. It was funny. It was dark. It was a little gross. And I really liked it. Really, really liked it. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. It was a really pleasant surprise. Even though I really like Kingfisher, sometimes she's more of a 3-star. She's either like a 4.5, 5-star, or she's a 3-star, and I'm never quite sure where I'm gonna fall with her books. And then I had to get James by Percival Everett because this was the pick for my In Real Life book club, and this is literary fiction, historical fiction, and it is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, or James, who is the enslaved man from the original tale. And this is satire, and Percival Everett is really firing back at Mark Twain and how Mark Twain wrote Jim. Percival Everett is turning that around and applying it to the white characters in this book. I found this really compelling, really easy to read. The chapters are so short. I mean, it's so easy to just fly through this book. And I really liked James's voice and perspective and how he navigated moving through this world. And I just like this extra layer onto the story that we don't get in the original text. And then for my Year of Butler and Gaskell, because February was a Gaskell month, I got a copy of North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I'm not planning to buy the books for this challenge, like for every one I have to read. I own some Elizabeth Gaskell already, but I wanted to grab North and South because this was a reread for me. I read it 6 years ago, and just absolutely adored it. And I've always wanted to get a copy of it, and I just never got around to it. So I took advantage of this challenge I've set for myself to pick up a copy. I also had some Pango bucks, so it felt like a good use of that money. And this is This is a classic about a woman named Margaret who moves from southern England to northern England into a mill town, which is a very different environment for her. There's a lot of social commentary in this about the plight of factory workers in England in the time, and there is also a romance between her and the owner of one of the cotton factories. I have no theme for the rest of the stack, just so you know. I tried, but there's no theme. Book 3 in the Ruinous Love trilogy came out this year. This is Scythe and Sparrow. Book 1 is Butcher and Blackbird. I loved Butcher and Blackbird and liked Leather and Lark, and I'm excited to read Scythe and Sparrow because it's going to wrap up the series. And also, I believe the female main character is like an acrobat or a trapeze artist, something like that. I don't know. Brynn Weaver's been hinting and teasing at this couple the whole series, and I'm so amped, and I hope I love it as much as I loved Butcher and Blackbird. But this series is like dark romance with serial killers and just people who do bad things and don't feel bad about it. I have another arc that I was sent, this time by Tor, and it is A Far Better Thing by H.G. Perry. This is historical fantasy, and this is a retelling of A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which is also another one of my favorite classics. And H.G. Perry reimagines Sydney Carton as, how do I phrase this? So in this reimagined A Tale of Two Cities, Sydney Carton was kidnapped by the Fae as a child, and Charles Darnay, who's the hero from A Tale of Two Cities, is the changeling that was left in his place. Anyways, this is a very Emily-coded book. I hope I love it, and I can't wait to read it. I'm debating rereading A Tale of Two Cities before I dive into this, but I also don't really want to give myself any hurdles that get in my way from picking this up, but I'm super amped. I hope I really love it, because it's so many things that I'm excited about. And then on my most recent book shopping excursion, I got Walking Practice by Dolki Min. This is a book of translation, which I don't read a lot of, but this is a novella about an alien who comes to Earth and is disabled by gravity and also needs to eat people to live and is non-binary. I've heard there's really great commentary about queerness and non-binariness in this book, and I think it's going to be weird, but I think it's going to be like weird that I'm going to really dig, and I'm really excited to read it. And then of course, as we mentioned already, I picked up the new traditionally published edition of Swordheart by T. Kingfisher, which is her Romantasy. Read it already. I really liked it. It was a good time. Okay, apologies. My card was full. But what was I saying? Oh, Romantasy, T. Kingfisher. I really liked it. All the things I like about her. Not as many horror elements in this, but I love how she writes romance. So this was great. I absolutely love that. And then I very impulsively grabbed an arc of The Magician of Tiger Castle by Louis Satcher. I think that's how you say his last name, from the Bookstore. He wrote, what are they called? My kids loved them. Sideways Stories from Wayside School, which is a middle grade series, like an early middle grade series. And like, we loved those when my kids were little. Like, we read them aloud for bedtime, and I liked them. The kids liked them. Yeah, Sideways Stories from Wayside School. We've read the whole series. He's also wrote Holes, which I haven't read. And so I think this is his first adult novel, and I am so curious. And it's not very long, so I'm going to give this a shot and see what I think. This doesn't come out until August, though, so we have a minute. And then for my Year of Butler and Gaskell, I did pick up another Gaskell book. I know, I'm not going to buy all of them. I'm not. But I wanted this one so much. It is Tales of Mystery and the Macabre by Elizabeth Gaskell. These are like gothic short stories that she wrote, and I'm saving this for October because that is going to be another Gaskell month, and I think this will be the perfect book to read during that time. And yeah, I'm just so interested to see what her gothic stories are like. And then the most recent book, this was in my, oh, I forgot one. Okay, wait, hold please. Okay, these last two are my my February and March books that I selected from Aardvark Book Box. I got Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor last month. This is like her step into literary fiction. She's primarily been a sci-fi author, but I've heard like the sci-fi elements are super minor in this, and it is more literary fiction. So I'm really interested to read from her because I've really loved Binti and some of her other sci-fi books that I've read. So we'll see how this goes. And then for March, I picked Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is his new release that comes out on March 18th, and it was an early selection for Aardvark Book Club. And I love Stephen Graham Jones, and this is supposed to be like a historical dual timeline vampire novel. We'll see. I did start it yesterday, but I'm only like 10 pages in, so we got a long ways to go. So there we go. Those are all the books that I purchased in the winter between 2024 and 2025. It feels like a lot, and I don't have any more thoughts than that. As always, I think I say this almost every time, I do really like filming these hauls because it does force me to remember what exactly I have purchased most recently, and does get me amped to read the books on my shelves, especially since I do not separate out unread from read on my shelf. So I really like this visual reminder of like, oh yeah, I have that. I am really excited to read that. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and spending your precious time with me. If you want to leave an emoji to let me know you were here, I guess let's do a clock or a watch emoji. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!